Okay, pleasant evening, Brother Joe, brothers and sisters. I'm YY here. Grateful to Sister Tzu Chi for this sharing opportunity on the sixth realization. It's solely based on my limited understanding, yeah. Before focusing on the sixth realization, just wish to quickly touch on these few points. Yeah. Okay. The eight realization are the 8 ways, yeah, to cultivate Buddhahood discovered by the great beings. The Mahasattva, who had diligently practiced compassion and generosity. They have sailed the Dharmakaya boat to the shore of Nirvana, but then, directed by their vows and compassion, they return to the ordinary world, using these 8 realizations to help sentient beings recognize the suffering and show the ways to overcome them in the journey to attain enlightenment. These 8 realizations are the great antidotes to the 8 kinds of universal suffering, and practicing the 6 parameters is among the key remedies. In reality, there are just infinite kinds of suffering. We will never count them all. Even when all is well, Master has advised us to be prepared for crisis. More so now, we are in the Dharma degenerating age. Many disasters have occurred frequently, and now the COVID pandemic has caused an unprecedented human and health crisis in the world. The measures necessary to contain the virus have triggered an economic crisis. On June 15, Wisdom at Dawn, Master mentioned that this pandemic has led to a crisis of poverty. All this is caused by people's collective bad karma. Master's constant reminder to us is to take heed of the alarming disaster and be truly awakened to the crucial lessons that it brings. Cherish all life, must embrace vegetarianism, pray piously, practice repentance, and ask for forgiveness with sincere piety. Correct our past wrongdoings and cultivate ourselves from now on. Now on the 6th realization, which states that poverty and suffering breed resentment. So people relentlessly form negative affinities. Bodhisattvas practice and treat everyone, friend or foe, equally. Then neither harbor grudges nor reject evil people. The Sutra text is quite self-explanatory. The subject of suffering here is related to poverty, and the key remedy is to practice giving to ease the suffering. This is practicing the first parameter, and essentially it is to walk the Bodhisattva Path to help the poor. Talking about poverty, a great majority of us will immediately associate it with material deprivation poverty that's caused by the inability to meet basic needs. But Master did highlight the greatest poverty of all is the absence of love and virtue, not material comfort. As we know, the common types of suffering arising from material deprivation poverty include starvation, malnutrition leading to poor health, illness, and poor living conditions. But the effects of poverty are far more than all these physical hardships. People living in poverty are at greater risk of having emotional and psychological problems, which include low self-esteem, antisocial behavior, intense feelings of hatred, anger, anxiety, and mental distress. Poverty creates a vicious cycle of negative thoughts and actions. There is correlation between crime rate and poverty. Poverty can lead to high levels of stress, which in turn may lead individuals to commit theft, robbery, or other violent acts. Having the awareness of the existence of suffering is the first crucial step leading us to begin practicing the way of realization. Only by being aware of suffering can we find its cause and the ways for liberation. This is the principle of the Four Noble Truths. Be aware of the suffering, causes of suffering, cessation of suffering, and cultivate the path to cessation of suffering. Suffering is indeed the contributory factor for one to learn the path. I had at some time in the past puzzled why is life so much harder for some people than others, and how come the poor are all residing in certain places and certain countries. After learning Buddhism, we could see the explanation in the Four Noble Truths. Specifically, the second noble truth, that suffering comes from the accumulation of bad karma and collective karma too. I wish to touch a little bit more on the law of karma because personally find it very empowering. It teaches us that we can change ourselves and our situation. We have the power to reshape the future. As we know, the law of karma in the simple terms is what goes around comes around. We reap what we sow, which could transcend time and space boundary from the past to the future life. All the bad and unwholesome karmic seeds are stored in the field of our eight consciousness. The first seven levels of consciousness will decline over time and cease upon death, but the eighth consciousness persists forever. It is what we bring with us as we transmigrate through the six karmic realms of rebirth without any control of our own. Direct retribution is sentient being's body, which is a temporary union of the five aggregates. It is the present good or evil karmic fruit reaped from the good or evil karmic seeds sown in the past. Circumstantial retribution is the external material world. For example, the country where we will be born and live in, the living environment, career, and social status. These are all governed by direct retribution. Direct retribution is the cause, and circumstantial retribution is the effect. Poverty is a form of circumstantial retribution caused by direct retribution. Hence, in order to improve circumstantial retribution, one should cultivate and strengthen direct retribution. Direct retribution, our body is represented by our behavior, our speech, and our thought. Every thought, every word, and every action is the origin of karma. All these are ultimately controlled by the mind. This explains why spiritual cultivation, in essence, is about cultivating the mind. The mind is the DNA of faith. That means changes made in the mind or direct retribution will lead to changes in faith or circumstantial retribution. Sharing this example for a better understanding of this principle. In order to improve the quality of an apple, the scientists will not work on the apple itself. Instead, the scientists will have to modify the DNA of the apple seed. When the DNA of the apple seed, the direct retribution is modified, only then the quality of the apple, the circumstantial retribution, will be changed accordingly. When we understand the principle well, that it is the direct retribution that lies the root of circumstantial retribution, we will have to put our focus and efforts to cultivate from within. As guided by Jingsi Dharma lineage, we have to cultivate sincerity, integrity, faith, and steadfastness, founded upon the 4 great vows, and this has to be complemented with our physical actions to walk the Bodhisattva Path by embracing the 4 infinite minds: great loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The law of karma explains that each person has different individual karma with a unique mental disposition, a unique physical appearance, and unique experiences. These are the various effects of the countless actions that each individual has performed in the past. Hence, through recognizing that the main causes of our experiences are our own previous actions of body, speech, and mind, we can learn to accept in a positive way any physical or mental difficulties we may be experiencing. Also, recognizing that our actions determine our future experience encourages us to develop and strengthen the determination to abandon negative actions. All things are created by the mind, so we must guard the thoughts of our minds well, constantly heighten our vigilance, and in our daily living practice to be endlessly mindful of how we treat people and handle matters. It is through our daily interaction with people that either we form good or bad affinities. On June 25th, Wisdom at Dawn, Master did mention the suffering in this world is basically inborn. Sentient beings come to this world to suffer the consequences of own evil deeds in the past. Master said she has to remind us every day not to neglect karmic affinity, the causes and conditions, as these are the fundamentals of learning Buddhism. When we understand there is accumulation of bad karmic debts in the past, we must cultivate ever willingly by forming good affinities, as this is the key to eliminate karmic obstructions. Master reminded us to practice the 3 goodness to everyone. Speak kind words, think good thoughts, do good deeds. If everyone can embrace these 3 goodness, everyone will be a good person. We just need to apply these 3 simple yet essential Dharma methods. And there is no need to refer to any profound Dharma. Be understanding, considerate, and amiable in our interaction with people. Help and care for one another, be more tolerant of others, to empathize and develop love and compassion for others. All these are crucial to foster good relationship and good affinities. So, in essence, understanding karma will help us to develop the wisdom to change our situation in a positive way, to live in harmony with the people and conditions that we encounter in daily life, and to generate the inner strength to accept positively the things we cannot change. On the subject of suffering, other than the insights from the angle of the law of karma, it also helps us to realize and recognize our blessing, and hence be more contented with our life. Understand the significance and the value of suffering is important in order to study the art of happiness. There is something to be taken. It might be a lesson, an awareness, or a reminder. Hardships and struggles are what mold the brain into thinking more intuitively about the perspective of life. Moments of sadness, heartbreak, grief actually make lasting impressions and increased sense of awareness of self, of character, more than happy moments ever will. Professor Harrison did explain in his book titled From Altruism to Ultimate Awakening that the root of kindness could only be inspired by direct personal involvement and not through books or ideas. It is through direct experience of the bitterness of life that our compassion will be inspired, becoming more aware of our own blessings and hence more appreciative and willing to help and serve others. I could really resonate very much with what Professor Harrison has explained, because before reading his book in 2018, I had this personal experience. In November 2017, when I first took part in a Penang flood relief work after becoming a uniform volunteer in August of the same year. The original intention of taking part was to offer help, but to my surprise, I realized I had benefited so much instead. It was my first experience ever seeing the situation of the disaster areas and the hardships that the flood victims had to go through, as we can see from these few photos. When back home, after the relief work, suddenly I realized there are so many people, including my family, and so many things that I had taken for granted all this while. And it was like on the spot, I could feel my sense of gratitude growing so strongly. This deeper sense of gratitude in me has actually lasted till now. And what used to make me feel upset or unhappy about in the past had all of a sudden seemed to be peanut matters, so insignificant already. These really help to put things in perspective of what truly matters to me in my life. Just imagine if I were to confine myself to the way of normal life, day in, day out, without getting out of my comfort zone to go among the people to help, I wouldn't have been able to gain this realization. From this precious experience and the involvement in other Tzu Chi charity cases, most, if not all, are due to financial hardships, I could really appreciate very much more and grasp better why Master keeps on advising us we must go among the masses to help suffering sentient beings, and that bodhisattvas arise all because of the suffering sentient beings. Sentient beings have a lot of afflictions. It is only by going amongst sentient beings to experience what suffering is, sympathize and empathize with them, will we be able to acquire the wisdom that lies within. This is why afflictions lead to wisdom. Going among people is like entering into a sutra collection. Every sentient being is like a sutra which lies wondrous Dharma. On the 30th June Wisdom at Dawn, Master did mention, the Dharma in the earthly world is so much more than Buddha Dharma. So when going among people to offer help, it is not only benefiting others, but we will attain the wisdom too, as the popular sayings goes. For it is in giving that we receive. Effectively, it is complementing one another. The best analogy that our Master used to tell us is the lotus flower and the mud. Just as the mud provides the nutrient for the lotus flower to blossom, the suffering sentient beings actually provide us the spiritual nourishment to grow our wisdom life. Wisdom is enhanced through human affairs. When we learn by practicing, we gain awareness from the learning process, and awareness facilitates awakening. The lotus flower comes from the dirty mud and murkiest water, but it blooms untouched by the mud. Each petal remains clean and pure. That's Master's advice to us always. Be like the lotus flower. While serving the needy in this imperfect and filthy world, we must still remain pure and untainted. Let our mind be like a mirror. The images reflected can be constantly changing, but when they disappear, the mirror will still remain clear without leaving any marks or traces behind. As we know, Buddha came to the Saha world for one great cause, to teach the great Lotus Sutra so that sentient beings understand the Buddha's knowledge and insight, which will enable them to gain purity and enlightenment. The ultimate destination of learning Buddha Dharma is to attain Buddhahood. In the moment when the Buddha attained enlightenment, the first thought that came into Buddha's mind is that all sentient beings have inherent Buddha nature and are capable of attaining Buddhahood. Just that this Buddha nature is temporarily obscured by delusions. Practicing continual altruistic giving gradually removes these obscurations until the mind's pure nature is revealed. Hence, walking the path in essence is a journey of self-purification. All Buddhas attain Buddhahood in this ordinary world and not in heaven, because there are all kinds of suffering in this world. The impurity and toughness of sentient beings are great spiritual training grounds for living bodhisattvas to practice selfless, loving kindness, gain wisdom, and accomplish the Buddha's will. It is through the impurity we enlighten our purity, and through the actions we awaken our true Buddha nature. Through the earthly world, we reach the state of ultimate spiritual enlightenment. The place of affliction is indeed the place to attain Buddhahood. I have grouped all these points into two broad categories, internal and external cultivation, which to me they actually share the same essence and principles. One is on the concept and spirit that we need to capture into our minds, and the other is what we need to put into action. Master has always been advising us we must cultivate both as they complement each other. Purifying our mind is the first priority, and carrying out the altruistic practice is the ultimate goal. And compassion and wisdom are the two essential virtues of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Accepting the Buddha teachings, putting Dharma into practice by diligently performing acts of kindness to help the suffering sentient beings are the best forms of offerings to the Buddha. Without walking the path, one is not able to reach the shore of awakening. For the poor, what we could help to do is to practice giving, which is the most relevant and ranked the first among the 6 parameters and the 4 all-embracing virtues of Bodhisattvas. As we know, there are 3 kinds of giving. Number 1 is material giving. This is helping the poor by giving them the basic needs of a material nature. For example, food, clothing, shelter, and money. Number 2, giving of protection from fear. This is helping others by protecting them from danger or elevating their fears. Number 3 is giving of Dharma. The third kind of giving can be in a formal situation, like actually teaching the Dharma, or it can just be giving counseling, encouragement, advice, or correct view to help the recipients with their problems. If we say our prayers out loud where they can hear, it is also a form of giving of the Dharma. Besides giving to help fulfill the poor's basic needs, Tzu Chi's charity mission has another important goal, that is to inspire the innate kindness of the poor, 济贫交富, relieving the poor and teaching them to be rich by heart. It is kindness that makes us spiritually wealthy, not how much we have in the bank account. Wish to share this charity case because feeling so blessed indeed that we have the affinity to apply all the 3 kinds of giving. Firstly, providing financial support to the care recipient for medical expenses, then comforting the care recipient who is so worried about her elder son's whereabouts, performing prayer together, promoting vegetarian food, and happiest of all, we managed to inspire the care recipient who agreed to donate to Tzu Chi Foundation to help the less fortunate. We also shared Master's 3 aspirations and Jingsi aphorism on how valuable life would be in becoming the benefactor to others. This is the charity case that we have received so much Dharma joy. Master has always been emphasizing that we should practice giving without expecting anything in return and with gratitude at the same time. As this is the highest state of giving, the formless giving. This is the perfection of giving, the threefold wheel of essential emptiness. Giving without any idea who the donor is, that is without the concept of self, with no idea who the recipient is, that is without discrimination regarding the recipient, and with no idea what is being given. In Buddhism, giving is of prime importance in mental purification. By giving away what is valuable, we reduce attachment by letting go. By using our possessions or time to benefit others, we develop altruism towards others. Giving helps make egoism tall and serve as the best antidote against greed, the first of the 3 poisons. Master has always been advising the blessed ones to cherish their blessings and so more. And we have to inspire others to join in together to benefit the world. Doing it alone is not good enough, no matter how strong one can be. It requires the united hearts of all to generate the strength needed. If we do not pool everyone's efforts together by inspiring more people to give, it is like a situation where we only have a good seed, but without the favorable conditions, for example, fertile soil, sunshine, water, and air, to enable the seed to grow well into a big tree laden with fruit. Hence, it is important to create good conditions. That is to form good affinities with many people. These are the favorable conditions that will enable one seed to give rise to countless, from one to affinity. On July 7, Wisdom at Dawn, Master had again explained that the suffering sentient beings are all future Buddhas, and advised us to serve and form good affinity with all these future Buddhas. When we know about the places and people in suffering and are capable of helping, we will then form good affinity mutually. But there are situations where some people who know about suffering, but they have no means of helping, or some people who are able to offer help, but do not know about it. Such is the karmic causes and affinities. On 2nd June, Wisdom at Dawn, Master told us fostering affinity is not difficult. Just like the tree which is originated in ancient India, when we have the chance to bump into it now, but can't tell the name because we don't know about it, we just need to ask. And if we don't end there, but move it to the territory close to us, which Brother Joe used bonsai as the analogy, our affinity with the tree of bonsai is connected. Similarly, for the suffering sentient beings who have no affinity with us, we must take the initiative to care for them and offer help, thus creating the cause, which will in turn link the affinity together and keep linking for current and life after life. If the people in suffering couldn't come out, the blessed ones should reach out to help them. One classical case in Malaysia is Kampong Titingan in Tawau. Many illegal immigrants live there. It has such a high crime rate that is called a black area. Even the locals shunned it, but Tzu Chi Volunteers has stepped foot in it since 2016 to provide aid and help resident children receive education. If unaided, these stateless children might grow up illiterate, just like their parents, and be hard-pressed to make a living. It is stated in the Sutra text that when practicing giving, Bodhisattva treats everyone equally, friends and enemies alike. Equality here is not in terms of status and encounters, but rather the same inherent Buddha nature that every sentient being possesses. The inequalities among sentient beings are all because of their different good and bad karma created eons before. From the standpoint of the law of independent arising, which is a fundamental doctrine of Buddhism, everything is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. Everything affects everything else. Everything that is because other things are. What is happening now is part of what happened before and is part of what will happen next. All this arising and being and ceasing occurs in one vast field or nexus of beingness. And there we are. The whole universe is the one. We are all one. No beings or phenomena exist independently of other beings and phenomena. Therefore, we should cherish all beings. This is the fundamental spirit of Buddha's compassion, to have the great kindness for all sentient beings without conditions, and to have the great compassion for all sentient beings. This is unconditional loving kindness and universal compassion. Buddha treats all sentient beings as his own children. Whenever sentient beings are suffering, he feels like his children are suffering. This is Buddha's great compassion, feeling the pain over others' miseries, feeling sad over others' sufferings. Master has repeatedly called on us to care for all living beings with selfless great love. The integration of selfless love with all things and all beings is the supreme state of Buddhist altruism. The practice of compassion does not only help the recipient, but it helps the practitioner by developing virtues that make the practitioner a better person who can overcome greed, delusion, anger, and hatred. Referring to the Sutra text, which states, when practicing giving, Bodhisattvas neither harbor grudges nor reject evil people. These two great exemplars instantaneously came into my mind. One is Buddha. In spite of his evil-minded cousin Devadatta's several attempts to kill Buddha out of jealousy, and his attempt to split the Sangha, Buddha still bestowed prediction for Devadatta that he would attain enlightenment in the future as a Buddha. The other one is Never Sliding Bodhisattva, the previous reincarnation of Buddha. Whenever Never Sliding Bodhisattva met someone, he would always bow to him and say, "I don't dare slide you, for you will one day become a Buddha." Some people detested this behavior, so on occasion he had to endure curses and beatings while he bowed. Yet, Never Sliding Bodhisattva was still not disheartened, continuing to treat everyone respectfully as the future Buddha. In all circumstances, Never Sliding Bodhisattva was reverent and respectful. He truly cultivated the ascetic practice of patience and endurance. No matter how evil one is, when he is in suffering, we still have to offer our helping hands. This is the level of magnanimity of Bodhisattva. Putting into practice could be challenging, but everything is possible if we believe in ourselves. These two great exemplars of requiting resentment with kindness will always be the driving force for me to learn to be magnanimous. Life is filled with pain and suffering, but it is also filled with hope and love. Let's do good together for a better world. Be the giver of love and light to lead the path for others. Brothers and sisters, that's all about my sharing tonight. Cảm ơn for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Sister YY. It was very, very informative. I doubt anybody can do any better. You definitely went through all the teachings, and you went even as far back as June 2nd. I remember that day's Dharma at dawn, wisdom at dawn. Thank you for bringing all of that together, including many, many definitions. I think you brought in many examples of how that is. I think that's all very important. I wanted to bring to one part. I think it was when you talked about we are one. Now, this is just recently how I feel, and you brought it up. And so it's like this. I think all of us, okay, you, I, everybody else on this channel, on this online right now, or all the people that we know and all the people that we don't know. I think we all, that's what Master says, right? We're all belonging to the same body. Now, if you can imagine that, what does that mean? It means that you could be, a cell in this body. If we look at the universe as a whole, it's like a body, like you, okay? When you are hurting, say your head hurts, but your hand does not feel the head hurts, right? So it's like in the book, Master told us many stories where there are people that are in poverty, and some people got help, but others didn't. It's like, maybe it's your head that hurts, but your eyes get affected. So the eyes know that the head hurts, but the hand doesn't know. So, for example, there are people in this world that live in very, very good conditions, but they will never get to know that there are people that are really, really suffering. Okay, but there are people that like Master who feels. It's like you, right? If you are part of the whole, like Buddha, all-knowing, then he already knows that that head hurts. But if you are like this finger, then you are not going to know that the head hurts. What Master is trying to do for us is to get us to not just be the finger, to not just be a cell in the stomach, but rather you are part of the whole, and you are the whole. Don't just be the cell in the stomach. You are whole. You can feel the pain too. And it's not just that the Buddha feels that, or the Master. See, Master always says that when there's some problems in the world, she felt it, right? I think it's the same way, that you have to feel as one. And we are always, pull ourselves away, that we are our individual, right? We are our individual. Like, I have my own needs. I am different from you. I have to do my hair differently. I have to dress differently. Whereas Master keeps on telling us that, hey, we are one. Even if you are a cell that's in the stomach, or you are a cell that's in the heart, or you are a nerve cell in your brain, we are all part of the same. You can't go well. You can't be a good cell while the cell in the heart is dying. You can't possibly prosper when the eye cells are deteriorating. It's a whole thing. You might be doing great, like your finger is growing the nail very beautifully. But if your eyes sight are decaying, or if your heart cells are not working, or your nerve cells are not working, it won't matter that your fingers are great. It's growing at a very good rate, but it's not going to be good. And that's what the great enlightened ones are trying to bring us to our attention, that this is not just you, the cell, not just you, the organ. You belong part of a greater life. And we're all connected to this one life, one whole, not all of it. And that's where you brought up was the one body. Sorry, I took a lot of notes. So let me go back to think about, see what I actually read. So that's why I think that you mentioned that the Bodhisattva arises because of the suffering, right? And I've always, we hear a lot, we hear a lot of that, okay? Are you seeing my camera? You're seeing my camera, right? Do you see my face? You everybody see it, right? Okay. I don't know why, but do you see that the two things behind me, do they look like eyes? To me, that looks like eyes. It's quite scary. But anyway, that just means that it's quite scary. It means that at any moment, somebody is paying attention to what you're saying, even if you're just talking to yourself online and everybody in the office aren't looking. But that looks like eyes looking at me, and I'm scared right now. I'm glad I'm not in a very dark place right now. But anyway, okay. So that's just besides the point. So anyway, so what I wanted to say was that usually, the English is more, I think, clear than the Chinese. English says that Bodhisattva arises, and that means it doesn't mean that they arise from the ground. It's the Bodhisattva in you that arises. Okay, so it was already there. It's just like a flower that comes out, right? So I really think that what is the force that gets the Bodhisattva to arise within us? And I thought about like motherhood. Okay, so I'm never a mother, and I shouldn't probably in my life, this life, I can't be a mother. So, but I can imagine, right? Before you're a mother, well, before you're physically a mother, okay, before your child was born, your first child was born, then after, I'm sure there's a huge distinction. The motherhood in you arises not physically, but it has to be some kind of mental or spiritually. It comes out. Maybe when you're pregnant, it comes out already. And I think Buddhahood is the same thing. Bodhisattva is the same thing. That something that has to be strong enough, like being pregnant, that gives you the idea of motherhood that comes out, right? So seeing the suffering is enough. It's a big enough impact. And sometimes it's not big enough. Sometimes people are pregnant and they still don't get this motherhood. But sometimes they have to be, like really, really, the child has to be born and then they get it, right? Or maybe they have to have the 3 children and then they get it. But that's why sometimes people, when they see suffering, it was enough. Sometimes they need to see and be with suffering, and that's enough. Sometimes they actually have to be in suffering to see it. So that's the different levels, right? So I think this, you mentioned about the Bodhisattva arises. And I think that it's very important. Seeing the suffering allows us to have that impact, like being pregnant or having the child birth. That's a big enough impact to allow, the what is that called? The butterfly, okay? The butterfly to be able to come out of the cocoon. Otherwise, it would just be like a cocoon, and you have the butterfly or the caterpillar that's inside. The inside, they had to chew out. The butterfly has to somehow break free and, bite its way out of this cocoon to be able to come out. And that's, I think it's the same way that we all have that cocoon. And some of us, the cocoon is bigger and harder than others. For someone like Master, it was there all along. So it took a very little bit and it breaks. But for us, we are very, very much, underneath and covered. And you need to chew it at all time to break it away. And sometimes it's even harder. So there are some outside forces that helps you, slowly cheer you on and help you break, right? And sometimes we chew here and then we chew there. So we never really quite focus on one point and then you break free. No, you chew here, and when you're almost free, you come back to chew here. So the cocoon is, you start over. That's why this journey is very, very long. But in any event, I think we're coming to the 6th realization. Every day, every time there's something that tells us, and it builds on the previous. And I think in this one, it tells us that we need to have, you talked about the direct, the 正报依报. I think you did a very wonderful explanation. I think that was very good. It tells us now that rather than last week we talked about diligence, and 2 weeks ago we talked about diligence, and now it talks about giving, but more so it talks about putting the right seeds, right? You mentioned about the 6 and the 7, all these consciousness, right? And I think it's talking about building the future, building the future, planning the future. You can make a difference for the future. And I think that's very, very key. By doing giving, you chew out of this cocoon, and that's when you break free. But you can't just break free. You have to be prepared for your next cocoon, right? And so you have to continue to work more. But I think all of this is to let us know that we are but a cell, but not just a cell, but we are part of the body. So don't just look at yourself as a cell, but look at yourself as part of the body. This is your stomach, this is your heart, this is your liver, and that's part of you. But that's not all you. It's only part of you. So like us, we are but a part of a bigger us, and we're all interconnected. So when you don't know, like when your hand don't know that your feet hurts, you as a whole needs to tell the hand that you better work hard because now your feet hurts. The hand needs to help the feet. Now, if you reject, then the hand says, no, I choose not to. Then that will be very difficult. Now you will be without a feet, you'll be without your feet and without your hand because it refuses to help you. Then this world gets even worse. So for someone who is enlightened, will then be able to say, hey, you are part of us. Now work together. And just think about yourself. Don't think about you're helping your feet. Think about we are one. So don't think about you as an individual. Don't think about helping the feet as a different individual. Don't think about you are helping it. Think about you're doing yourself a favor, right? Your feet allows you to walk to where the food is, and then you can use a hand to grab it, so everybody gets nutrition. Now, if your feet aren't working, then nobody gets food, and you won't get nutrition. Even if you're okay now, you won't be okay later. Okay, so I think all these is telling us that the great mind is pulling us in to understand that we are but a whole. But we also, when we become a whole, when we work together, like all 10 of my fingers, if they all got their own minds, then it will be very difficult to type, right? Only because they have one single mind that the fingers are able to type all the alphabets. Now, if the forefinger says, I want to type A, and then you go like, well, no, A is on my side. Don't get to my side, right? And you go, no, I want to touch that A. No. A is ASDF, right? A is on this side. Don't come to my side. Well, then things won't get done at all. So I think the great mind works like the mind, the body knows that he himself or she herself, or it's not one individual, but it's part of the whole. And we all must work together to become the whole. And that's when this whole thing works. Otherwise, it won't matter that you have a great one. Just like the mind knows that we're all one. But if the finger doesn't know, it won't matter because the finger won't work. And if you have many, many parts that don't believe that you are part of the whole, then unfortunately this body isn't going to work. So in order for this body to work, then you're gonna have to have more. And that's where you mentioned the right Dharma, the resemblance Dharma, you mentioned about that too. That's when the proportion of the cells that believe that they are individual and they can go on living on their own, then you have the decay. But if you have all the cells really working and thinking that they all belong to the same body and they work to the same way, then you have a very healthy body. Okay, so thank you, Sister YY. I think this is wonderful. I'm going to go back to your PPT to understand more the part about that you mentioned about the different parts of the 医报正报. I want to get back to that on my own. But it's very, very informative. And thank you so much. You brought many things together. You talked about the trees, right? And I saw the picture in there. I knew you're talking about making the trees into the desks. Okay, so you also had that too, and you have the bonsai analogy from the second. You really linked it up together. It was very, very good. So I'm gonna go into that to look into that more. And by the way, what you did, you pieced together a lot of these small clip arts, and then you make it into, I know like Sister Xiaoqing, she does the drawing. And for those of us that probably can't draw as good, you make it into these very graphical that was very well done. You know, it will always be easy to remember and easy to understand. So I think that's very good. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sister YY. Wonderful, tremendous, wonderful job. Like I said, I'm going to go back to it. There's still many things I want to learn from this. But my immediate feedback is as a whole. And I think that's something that I got from what you talked about, and it just came to me. But I think it's one body, and how we get back to one body is probably the most important. So that's something that I wanted to get to. So thank you, Sister YY. This is very, very informative and very impressive. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
And Sister YY and Brother Joe for very impressive sharing. Sister YY, if you have any questions for Brother Joe or anyone who have questions, please seize the opportunity.
Yeah, or if you want to ask anything about, you know, the eyes behind me, you know, I think it's very scary. But if you don't look at me as a big photo, but if you look at me as a smaller one up top, it's scary.
No, it's not scary. I cannot imagine it to be scary, sorry. Somehow very happy. I'm sure everyone has a lot of Dharma joy since Chifas. Okay. If no questions, sorry, I have questions. Okay, for Brother Joe. Talking about this, the mind okay, if the mind could be controlling the whole body, telling them what to do, okay, like this hand, it should be helping each other. All the bodily functions. That is the Bodhisattva when one mind is enlightened. But, okay, my question actually is like, when the person is suffering, like Sister YY, during the flooding at Juru, she went there to help. She said it makes her realize that she suddenly felt that she has everything is enough, contented, and she has this, it's make her realize that the needs to serve as Bodhisattva. My question is, why after we know some people, some of the Bodhisattvas who have gone through all these disasters, they were so diligent, so diligent into missions, all these activities, then why suddenly do the people stop? They are continuing seeing the suffering. And why do people stop midway and give up? That's my question. Why don't people just continue on?
Yeah, thank you, Sister Ching. I think it's there is a Chinese proverb that says that learning is like going upstream. Okay, you must continue forward. Otherwise, if you don't do anything, there isn't a standstill. You're gonna roll backwards. Okay, so I think the key is this. That if we are doing what we are already doing, yet the work or the hill has already increased, then you're going to go backwards. That's why there are, for example, 52 levels of Bodhisattva. And the reason is you have got to get better too. As the challenges come across to you, the challenges are also in correspondence to your level. It's not going to just remain still. I will always think that, when we are in the first grade, you learn how to add and subtract, and then you learn, multiplication, division, and then you learn decimals, you learn fraction, and then you learn more and more and more, right? But look at now. You can't go back to your teacher and say, look, Mrs. Whoever, I can do addition very correct now. I can get 100% on every test. But my gosh, you're 40 years old. You can't tell me that you got 100 on the subtraction test. Same thing. All these great bodhisattvas, same thing. They have already bested the part where we haven't gotten to, but they are now confronted with an even more harder task. Like master's challenges are not something that we can understand right now. She must work harder than when she was 50 years ago in order to best her challenge and obstacles right now. If she worked the same way in her previous life or 50 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. We would be going backwards. But it's because you continue to go forward. So the challenges continue to come. And then you have to have the greater force. So it always brings us back to the three wishes. It's not the 人心净化, the other one, where you don't ask for, right? You don't ask for the lightening of the burden because it's not going to happen. It's going to get more. But what do you ask for? More strength. And that's what cultivation is. It's not just to overcome the problem now, but it's to overcome the problem that's coming and will be coming, and that will be harder. Now for Bodhisattva, like you mentioned, when they, it's perhaps it's, the rate that their diligence is superseded by the rate of the difficulty. And that might happen. And when that does happen, it sometimes pushes them back to the level where they are now able to overcome, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It gives them a little space and breathing room. That's how I like to see it, and how I like to encourage myself and others that this is not a break all. Like, it's not you take 2 steps backwards and then you fall through the cliff and then you start over from zero again. No, you actually start, but maybe when you're at 85 and now you got pushed back to 75, and then you have to work harder. But because you were there before, you were at 75 before you get to 85, you just go back there again. You had experience and you are the wiser, but it doesn't mean that you always pass the next test, right? So that's why this path is long and arduous, and that's why it is not like you pass the test on the first try. And that's why I always think about this. My I don't want to say predecessor, but my mentor who brought me in here. Okay, I mentioned him several times, right? Alan Ye. And the moment that he chose to leave, and it was very hard on me. The hardest part being that I began to question myself. He was wiser, he was smarter, he has been in here longer, he knows all the ins and outs, he knows more than I do, wiser, more intelligent, and more likable, everything the better of me. And he decided to leave. Now, if I were to hit the same obstacle that he encountered, would it have happened to me too? And I use that as an inspiration for me to continue. Maybe that is going to happen to me tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to get through. So I'm going to do my hardest today to accumulate enough strength so that when the heel goes this way, at least I will be able to hold on. Maybe I won't fall back all the way, but I will hold on. And then I found a way to grab on or continue. It might not be as smooth as right now, but I will at least not fall backwards all the way to the end. So it has to serve as something. You have to always remind yourself, when everything's cruising, like you're cruising on your math test, it means that you're not doing enough or you're in the wrong place. Okay? It must mean that, or it's a great time for you to take a little breather, but something big is coming up. And you have to be ready, your body, your soul, and always be prepared to confront the next challenge. Are you prepared? Every day listening to Dharma, are you prepared? And that's how I like to see, always prepared. And every second, try to, especially recently when we talk about all sentient being gladly seeing Bodhisattva, the part about 苦行, Master told us it's about practicing without attached to your needs and your pains. And it's not like no pain, no gain. No, but rather it's more about when you're thinking about, let me take a breather, switch and think about, can I do a little bit more without damaging or hurting or whatever, but can I do a little bit more? Instead of asking, can I take some rest? And when you switch that, like recently, I began to think that way. And it's really giving me more strength. And sometimes I do fall asleep, but it's giving me more positive strength. So I think all of that is very important. So thank you, Sis Jiaoxin. like you know, seeing you every week, it gives me a lot of, you know, motivation to continue, you know, the way that you're organizing and bringing people together, and all of you online, you know, Sister YY and everybody, you know, when we are all working on this together, you know, amazing work. Thank you all. You're all very wonderful disciples of our master and my teacher as well, because I'm just here talking, but you guys are there actually doing things. And thumbs up to all of you. Thumbs up.
Brother Joyce.
And the two eyes are looking at all of you. They're bearing witness, okay? Bearing witness.
We are all very, I'm sure, all like me, very, very grateful to Brother Joe for bringing us to this English Dharma, for sustaining all these years. Actually, yeah, looking at this Bodhisattva, all delighted in seeing it, sometimes reminded me when I started Shinfa. Actually, it was not easy then, because I have to work. I almost have a car accident a few times because so tired, and then my girl so young. When my home brother is not around, he said, you better stay at home. If anything happens, fire at home. He said, who will take care of the girl? So I literally, that time, I just dragged her along and she passed. Yeah. Looking back, I think must thank the past body. Sometimes when it rained very heavily, it was very cold. I should be able to sleep better, but somehow I just couldn't. Then I'll be thinking of, oh dear, master is out there waiting, she will be colder than me. I don't know. I mean, but today, of course, it's different because the body is, after 5 years, is so used to Shinfa. It's no longer that obstacle, but very glad. So I'm thinking at times, is that the tips? We must have the compassion. I'm not sure about the gearing up ourselves or whatever. Maybe for me, that point of time, I think very grateful to Master. She is my greatest benefactor because of thinking of Master. She has benefited myself so much, and realizing that she's still outside waiting for me. That thought, I can't even sleep at night. I cannot sleep in the morning already. I have to wake up. How could 师父在早课在那边坐着弟子睡觉? Oh, that one I cannot pass by. I just cannot. So I'm not sure. But today we all know that, realize that actually we are the one benefited. Actually today, of course, we know Master, she's really up to that level, but ourselves, those who could do it, really 真的很感恩. Very 感恩 to all the brothers and sisters who are listening, because of all of you. That's why we could sustain until today. If there is no listener, actually the sixth attainment also not complete. Brother Joe 真的是很感恩. We are very 感恩. The reason why it gave me that thought is because I have one brother. You have your mentor, I mean the brother who brought you in. I also have one charity sister, very senior. I remember when I just joined charity, she has so much experience. I always look up to her, and then she stopped until today. I heard she even burned her qipao. So I'm still trying until today to call her in. Still, at times she accept my messages, at times she received my call. But until today, she said, you don't understand my reason. It's very difficult for me to turn back. I just pray that I don't know whatever blessing. I just hope can pass it to this sister, and hope that this sister could turn back one day. I told myself, I'll buy the qipao for her if she's willing to come. She said, once she almost wanted to come back, she said, I don't even have a uniform. I said, don't worry about the uniform. 我就是这样了，我们的very 感恩 for us, those who can still be in Tzu Chi, all of us, we are holding each other's hand. Whatever it is, don't give up on this path. 真的是 we are on the right track. 感恩. Today don't know why I'm suddenly so sentimental thinking about the path. Okay, brothers and sisters, sorry, I took up a lot of time. Anyone who have any questions, please feel free to ask. This is really like a family, really Q&A. Reminded us when we initially started. Any questions we will throw at Brother Joe at that point. Brothers and sisters, Yoma, any questions?
Hello, yeah. My name is Sim. I have a question for Brother Joe. The other day, there was a Tzu Chi that says that she tried to attend many of the online sharing session. And then, because she's, I think too much time is taken into all this online sharing. And then the mother is saying that this is also a kind of attachment, you know. So how should we advise her?
How should we advise the Tzu Chi or the mother?
Both.
Okay. I think it goes without saying that I think doing too much of the things out of your ordinary ways. For example, not eating, not sleeping, not showering just because, all these online sessions are happening, that goes against, against a normal, healthy living is not preferred. Okay. So, but diligence, it's a sense of dedication. And I think for the mother, I think it's important. For example, how I convinced my mother, I began to let her know that, because my mom always said that when I was young, and it's true, when I was young, that I hated studying. I hated doing homework. And truthfully, that when we moved to a new place, all the neighbors thought that my mom was my stepmom, because she would always beat me, and I would be like crying out loud, and all the neighbors would be thinking, oh my goodness, the mom must be a stepmom. It's a horrible stepmom. Look at that kid, he's so cute, and he's getting beat senseless, right? Little did they know it was because I refused to do all the work. I refused to go to school. I refused to do the homework, and the only thing my mom could do was to beat me. Okay, so I explained. So that wasn't the point. The point was that's who I was, and that's how my mom remembered me as. And then I began to tell her, Mom, look at me now. I'm actually reading books, things that you didn't think I was into doing. I'm not only reading books, I'm reading a lot of things that it's making my mind really clear. And I'm doing things that are good for the society. It's not just I'm reading, I'm actually doing too. And she sees that. She saw that I am actively participating in helping people. And she thought, and I explained to her, can you imagine that I put in so much time and effort to do something that is actually good? Mom, you should be happy. Would you rather that I spend all this time and dedication doing some online gaming rather than online listening to something that's inspirational and then inspired to do something good? Wouldn't that be much better than, say, spend all the time staying in the room and playing games and online, doing all these things? No. So, Mom, you should be happy for me. And she was proud of me. She began to tear up and she said, yeah, I never realized my son. She didn't mention about beating me, but that's how it was, right? But to the daughter, I think we also need to let her know that it isn't right now in everybody's life. There's a balance, okay? Just like Sister Jo Ching, she had to take the balance of life. She couldn't just leave the little ones at home. She had to balance it. Yeah, she chose to take the little ones to Xun Fa Xiang, but that was the balance she had to take. She can't just do it on her own. Just, this is I want to do on my own. Same thing. If you want to be really diligent, it's okay. But it must be at a place and time where your life is in a balance. So it doesn't upset the people around you who are trying to do something. For example, being vegetarian would be something very straightforward, and you guys should know right away that if you want to convince people that you being vegetarian is okay, then you must exhibit all the good traits of being a vegetarian and that let them feel that it's okay, rather than, oh, now you're just being part of a cult and all that you're eating is all these things. No, rather it has to be something that they can accept as well too. Okay, so that's my sharing for both the mother and the daughter. So hopefully, Sister Layson, that would be helpful to you. Thank you all. It's thank you. And the story about my mom, true. Beating me, true. Stepmom, no. She gave birth to me. So, not my stepmom. She's my real mom. Okay.
Brother Joe, we are deeply grateful to your mom to give birth to a good son that is becoming a good teacher. We are so grateful to you. Please tell your mom.
Yeah. I'm going to tell her that thanks for beating me senseless, okay? Yeah. Like, no one believes it, like we have some staff, coworker, and they have some troubled little ones. And she comes to me like, how, you know, my child is like this, and how, you know, how do I make him like you? I'm like, no, trust me. When I was his age, you know, I told her the same story. You know, my mom would beat me because everybody think that she's my stepmom, but it was because I was so horrible. So yeah, it's okay. You know, it's yeah. I hope I turn out okay. Yeah. This is not a free pass to let everybody beat your kids senseless because Brother Joe told you so. No, please don't. That's not what I meant. You know, you don't come back to Jinse and tell Master and says, you know, it's because Brother Joe says that he came out okay, and that's why I beat my child. That's not gonna work. But love, you know, I think this karma. Okay. Anyway, thank you all. This is a very fun session.
感恩 Brother Joe. Okay, yeah, 时间time is truly cruel. 时间最无情. It's okay. Tomorrow we'll have more of Brother Joe. 感恩 Sister YY. Okay, Brother Joe and Sister YY for lots of heartfelt and wisdom sharing. 感恩 Sister Lacey for your fantastic question. Yeah, because of that, wow, suddenly I have, okay, I think a lot of mothers will have hope. Wow, don't worry, our sons will turn out well. Our children will turn out well. Okay, it's not meaning, doesn't mean that we have to beat them. Only they will turn out well. Okay, there's still a lot of hope here. 感恩 brother and sister for your presence. Hope that each of us could sustain the Dharma joy and take in another piece of Dharma Master and Huang and love to our life. Brother Joe will lead us in paying homage. Let us please make 3 vows to the Buddha and Dharma Master as we depart to apply these teachings in our daily life. Let us pay our respects to our teachers of life, universal truth. Palms together. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, 感恩 everyone. See everyone tomorrow morning. 感恩.
Bye.
And
So much for a wonderful session. 感恩 so much.